Yes, sir.
Can I have a couple of words?
It's going to have to be a couple, brother.
Yeah,
Couple. 1, 2. Like.
I know you got all these things.
All right. Inshallah. Inshallah. We'll do a little something. Let's do that.
You also use those.
Is Dr. Ali giving you guys a hard time? Is he? We're going to have to do something about that.
No, the lazy boy guy.
Subhanallah. Yalla. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here. All right, so let's get started. It isn't on, is it? Okay, there we go. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. I turned it off, didn't I? Okay. All right, so welcome to all of you, and thank you all for coming despite how miserable the weather is today, right? So I do appreciate the darkness of night, and with all the rain that we're getting, and we got all day, for you guys to work your ways out here. I really appreciate it. And inshallah ta'ala, I will inshallah get you guys out of here by 8:30 so you can get home to your families and get home to your a dry home, right? Today we're going to start a series that will take up to Ramadan, which we have entitled The Fiqh of Fasting, right? So we talk about the rules and regulations of fasting. And I thought we would begin tonight, or we would use as the foundation for our discussion the ayat from Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed fasting. These are verses 183 through 187 of Surah Al-Baqarah, about 4 ayat, or 5 ayat, okay? So, I do have some printouts of the Arabic and English, if anybody wants to follow along. So I'll give those. There's about 7 copies of that. And you guys can share as well. I didn't expect that many people to turn out, but I'm glad you guys did. And inshallah ta'ala we'll have a good discussion and get you guys home at a relatively early hour, inshallah ta'ala. Now, there are 2 pages, right? There are 2 pages. So everybody should get 2 pages. So the first 2 pages are the entirety of the 5 ayat, right? So everybody should have page 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 1, 2, and there's 7 copies of the set. Right, let's start. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He begins these ayat, or this passage of the Quran, with the statement, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, which basically means, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed upon you, as it was prescribed upon those who came before you, or those who preceded you, that you might attain taqwa, piety, and God consciousness. That's verse 2, 183. So let's, take, certain bits of the ayah and contemplate and reflect on them and their meanings. So we'll start out with the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is repeated. This phrase is repeated throughout the Quran. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu. O you who believe. طيب. So this phrase right there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beginning the ayat with this phrase, It lets you know that this, what is to come, is of great importance, great significance. And we know this because of what an-nida bil iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calling us, addressing us with faith. Addressing us with faith, O you who believe. Ibn Mas'ud, radiyallahu anhu, he said, إذا سمعت الله يقول في القرآن يا أيها الذين آمنوا فأوعها سمعك فإنما هو خير يأمر به أو شر ينهى عنه. Ibn Mas'ud, he said, anytime you hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran, O you who believe, فَأَوْئِهَا سَمْعَكَ, then pay close attention to what follows. Because what follows is either going to be some good thing Allah is going to command you to do, or some bad thing Allah is going to prohibit you from doing. And just go home and practice this. Open the Quran to any place where it says, "Oh, you believe," and you'll find it will either be followed by what? A command or a prohibition. Allah says, "Do this," or He says, "Don't do this." And those ayat are important. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically by saying, "Oh, you who believe, do this." "Oh, you who believe, don't do that." He's saying that what comes after it is an essential of faith. And an alama, an indication that you truly believe. You want to measure yourself. You say, "Oh, am I really a believer?" Allah is saying, use this as your yardstick. If Allah says, "Oh, you believe, do this," if you're doing it, it's a sign that what? You're a believer. And if Allah says, "Oh, you believe, don't do this," and you don't do it, you intentionally don't do it, you intentionally avoid it, it's a sign that you what? You believe. So in this way, Allah is saying, "Oh, you who believe, if you really believe, you will fast." Y'all see that? That fasting is what? One of the essentials of faith and one of the signs that you truly believe. Y'all see that? Mumtaz. The thing about that, he says, fasting. As-siyam. Fasting. Like fasting has more than one meaning. One of the meanings is the meaning al-ma'na al-lughawi. The linguistic meaning. The linguistic meaning of fasting is mutlaq al-imsak. It is abstinence and self-denial. Any and every form of abstinence and self-denial in Arabic, in the language of the Arabs, is called imsak. So anything that you intentionally deny yourself, anything you intentionally abstain from, when you abstain from that, you are called, or you're considered fasting. You are considered to be observing a fast. We do that. It is evidenced by the verse from Surah Maryam, where, if you guys remember that passage, when she's giving birth, the angel comes to her and she's very upset. And obviously she's upset partly because of the pangs and because of the pain of what? Of childbirth. But she's more so upset because she fears what? An ab. She fears that people are going to say that she is an indecent woman because she's not married. Y'all see that? So she's really in a very heightened emotional state. And the angel, he comes and he says to her what? He says to her, just relax. There's a palm tree behind you. Shake it. And dates will fall from it into your lap that you'll be able to what? To eat from and gain what? Strength to get through the childbirth. And also Allah will give you a spring that will what? That will spring forth from underneath you so that you can what? You can drink. Then the angel, he says, فَكُلِي وَاشْرَبِي وَقَرِّي عَيْنًا فإما ترين من البشر أحدا فقولي إني نذرت للرحمن صوما فلن أكلم اليوم إنسيا. So basically the angel tells her, he says, eat and drink. وَقَرِّ عَيْنًا, and let your eye be cool. Don't cry. Don't be sad. وَإِمَّا تَرَيِنَّ مِنَ الْبَشَرِ أَحَدًا, and if you come across any person, then tell him, I have vowed an oath to Allah to fast. So this day I will not speak to anyone. طيب. Was she fasting or was she not fasting? She was fasting. But he told her to eat and drink. So what type of fast was she doing? A fast from what? From speaking. Which means what? One of the meanings, or the linguistic meaning of fasting is any time of what? Any type of absence. If you abstain from speaking, you are fasting in the language. Like, what is fasting? Fishar. What is fasting in the language of the deen? The fasting Allah is talking about here when He says, Kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Fasting has been prescribed. What is the fasting talking about? It's fasting from speaking?
From everything.
No. He's talking about what? At-ta'abbud lillah. Bil-imsak. عن جميع المفطرات بنية من طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس. So basically when Allah says, O Muslims, O believers, Allah has prescribed fasting for you, He means what? At-ta'abudullah, worshiping Allah. By denying oneself the fast breakers. Primarily food, drink, and intimacy. On purpose. From the crack of dawn until dusk. Tayyib, let's look at that together. That definition basically has 4 parts to it. 4 boxes we need to be checking in order to say that we're really fasting in terms of what Allah has prescribed and expects from us. The first one is worshiping Allah. That basically when I do it, it's an exercise of what? Of trying to get close to Allah. I'm not doing it as a diet. I'm not doing it to lose weight. Y'all see that? I'm not doing it as what? As a habit or a custom. Everybody else does it. I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing. No, we're doing it intentionally to what? To worship Allah, to draw close to Allah. That's number 1. But how do we worship Allah? By fasting, by denying ourselves the things that will break our fast. And there are primarily what? 3 things. Food, drink, and what? Intercourse. We have to do this in order for us to be fasting. We have to do it on purpose. Biniyah. We have to do it on purpose. So we can't do it by accident. We can't fast by accident. So if a person gets up early in the morning, he's ready for work. Before he leaves for work, he does what? He eats something or he drinks something. He eats a cup of coffee, eats a muffin, heads out to work. Gets to work and offers salat al-fajr because he works early, right? But gets to work and starts working. And he gets really, really busy at work. So busy, doesn't take a break. Doesn't break for lunch. Doesn't even take a water break. Just what? Just works. Gets off work right with what? Right with the sunset. He says, man, I didn't eat all day. I was fasting. Was he fasting? No, because he didn't have the what? The intention. He didn't do it on what? On purpose. We have to fast with intention. We have to do it on purpose. We can't do it by accident. Y'all see that? And our fast in Islam, it has a beginning time and a what? And an end time. It begins from what? From the crack of dawn. Not from what? Sunrise. From the crack of dawn. And it continues until what? Tulu ash-shams. Until sunset. Y'all see that? This is fasting in Islam, and this is what Allah says when He says what is prescribed for you. But through Ba'danik, He starts the ayah by saying Kutiba alaykum. He says Kutiba. Kutiba is another way of saying Ujiba. It's what has been required. It's been mandated. It's obligatory. Lets you know that fasting is a religious requirement. It's not. It's optional. But the question is it mandatory on everyone? Is mandatory on everyone without exception? No, fasting is mandatory on kulli muslim, balighin, aqilin, qadirin, khalin min mawani'. Fasting in our religion is required on every mentally capable, mature, able-bodied Muslim free of inhibitors. So basically 5 boxes you have to check in order for fasting to be what? To be obligatory on you. Y'all see that? So the first one, you have to be what? You have to be a Muslim. And this is evidenced by the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which He says, وَمَا مَنَعَهُمْ أَن تُقْبَلَ مِنْهُمْ نَفَقَاتُهُمْ إِلَّا أَنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ وَبِرَسُولِهِ. Nothing prevented their charitable offerings from being accepted from them, except that they disbelieved in Allah and His Messenger. That no good deed will be accepted from one, a person who disbelieves. And therefore, doing these good deeds is a waste of time for them. They have to first believe and then do what? And then do the good deeds. And so they're not expected to do the good. They're not required to do the good deeds. The first thing you have to be what? You have to be Muslim. And so it's wrong for us. We see this a lot on like college campuses. They'll have something called like a fastathon, or I forget what they call it. They call it like fast with the Muslims, something like that. And so they encourage non-Muslims to do what? To fast. Right? Fasting is not an exercise, it's not a diet. Fasting is what? An act of worship. And if you're going to worship Allah, the first thing you have to do before you actually do the acts is what? Is believe. You know, so that otherwise it won't be accepted, and it's almost you're mocking God. Right? It's almost like you're mocking God by doing an act of worship when you don't what? When you don't believe in God in the first place. So that's number one. The second one we said baligh. You have to be what? Pubescent. You have to be mature. You have to be somebody who is what? Is mukallaf. Somebody who is religiously responsible, spiritually responsible, and expected to what? Do the deed. Which means what? A child of 10 years old, 8 years old is not what? Obligated to fast. Y'all see that? Like also aqil. You have to be a person who has their mental faculty, right? They have mental faculty. You have to have your wits about you. You can't be someone who lacks the ability to even intend or be deliberate in doing anything. You guys see that? And what's the proof for that? The proof for those two, baligh, you have to be mature, pubescent, and you have to be what? Have your wits about you. Is a statement of the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith of Ali, collected by Bukhari, which he said, أَمَا عَلَمْتَ أَنَّ الْقَلَمْ رُفِعَ عَنْ ثَلَاثٍ عن صبي حتى عن الصبي حتى يدرك والمجنون حتى يفيق والنائم حتى يستيقظ. He said, are you not aware that Allah has raised the pen for three? Meaning what? He doesn't expect them to do anything. He won't hold them accountable for not doing things. The first one is a young person until what? Until they reach the age of what? Maturity. Until they become pubescent. Next one is a person who is not in his right mind. Until what? Until his sanity and his faculties return to him. And the last one is a person who's what? Who's sleeping until what? Until he wakes up. Y'all see that? So that takes care of what? The first three. Muslim, baligh, aqil. Somebody has to be Muslim, they have to be mature or pubescent, and they have to have what? Have their wits about them. Number three, qadir. They have to be somebody who's capable of fasting. Allah doesn't obligate people to do something they're not able to do. As Allah says throughout the Quran, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not make somebody do something that they're not able to do. So if you're not able to fast, Allah doesn't expect you to fast. So for example, let's say a person, they were elderly, really elderly, and their body will not what? Will not bear, it will not tolerate fasting. If they fast, it would create what? All types of other issues with them, right? They're too old to fast. Those people are not obligated to what? Fast. Their body will not what? Will not tolerate it. But you also have people who have illnesses. Sometimes they have an illness which is not chronic, but it's very severe, like COVID or pneumonia, right? Or they may have a chronic illness, like cancer. You guys see that? So people like that are not required to fast because they can't what? They can't fast. Allah says in the Quran, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And as for those who can fast, but if they fast, it will cause them a great deal of hardship. It will do more harm than good. Then let them not fast and instead feed a poor person for every what? For every day. He also says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فِعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. So whoever amongst you is ill or on a journey, then let him suspend the fast and make the missed days up later. Y'all see that? What's left? Khalim and mu'ahad. The person who's obligated to fast has to have no what? No inhibitors. They have to be free of things that because of it, Allah and His Messenger have prohibited a person from fasting. It's literally, not only are they not obligated to fast, they'll be sinful if they fast. They have to be free of that. Like who? Like a woman on her menstrual period, or one who has postnatal bleeding. You guys see that? The Prophet said in the hadith, أَلَيْسَتِ الْمَرْأَةِ إِذَا حَاضَتْ لَمْ تُصَلِّ وَلَمْ تَصُومْ. He said, is it not the case? Certainly, a woman who is menstruating neither fasts or prays. You guys see that? Neither fast or prays. They're not allowed to fast or pray. All right. So what else is left? So what does that mean for us? It means that fasting is not obligatory for the following. someone who is mentally incapacitated, somebody who has severe dementia, are they required to fast? No. Like someone who is underage, non-pubescent, who have not reached the age of religious responsibility, a taklif. They're also not obligated to fast. So I have a 10-year-old. Are they obligated to fast? Can they fast? They can fast. They can, but they're not obligated. Like, number 3, those who are temporarily ill with a serious condition and who will be harmed by fasting. Somebody with COVID, somebody with pneumonia. Like women who are pregnant or breastfeeding are also in that category. And Ibn Abbas and Ibn Umar, they were asked about the woman who is pregnant and breastfeeding. And they said, Al-hamil wal-murdi' tuftirani wa la taqdiyani. They said, the hamil and the murdi', the woman who is pregnant and the woman who is breastfeeding, they suspend the fast and they don't what? They don't make it up. But they do pay what? They pay fidya. They pay fidya, they feed in place of what? In place of the fast. What Daraqutni قال هذا حديث صحيح. Daraqutni, he said this is authentic athar on the authority of those two men, or those two companions. Like also, those who are traveling a significant distance from home, they're not required to fast. People are traveling. Like also, non-Muslims are not required to fast. And last but not least, menstruating women or women experiencing postpartum bleeding. Okay, all of these are exceptions to that rule where Allah says, Kutiba alaykum as-siyam, fasting is obligatory. There are exceptions to that rule, and we mentioned those exceptions. Please remember those, because before we leave, I'm gonna test you guys. Okay, so just try to keep those in the brain. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Fasting has been prescribed for you. Like kayfa kutib. How was it prescribed? Fasting was prescribed what? Gradually, in stages. And what you're going to notice about, just to show you and to highlight the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how He understands the psychology of His creatures, is that all of the things that are difficult, very challenging for most people to do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would legislate those in what? In stages. For example, the Arabs in the time of the Prophet, they loved alcohol. Alcohol was a central part of their life. It was a central part of their life and their culture, to the point that they would write poetry about what? About alcohol, praising and lauding it. And alcohol was a big deal to them. But ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had every intention of what? Of disallowing it, making it absolutely prohibited. And He prohibited it in what? In stages. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first ayat that He revealed about alcohol is the ayat from Surah An-Nahl. I'm sorry, Surah An-Naml. No, Surah An-Nahl, I'm sorry. 16 verse 67. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِن ثَمَرَاتِ النَّخِيلِ وَالْأَعْنَابِ تتخذون منه سكرا ورزقا حسنا إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون. He says, in the fruits of date palms and grapes from which you derive intoxicants and wholesome food, certainly in this there is a sign for those who exercise common sense. Allah says this about what? About alcohol. He mentions that from these fruits you make this strong drink that intoxicates you. And He mentions it in a way that what? It's permitted. The first ayat Allah mentions about alcohol are ayat that talk about it in what? In a positive way. In a positive way, and mention that this is something guys make, and it's something you drink. At no point in that ayat you get any indication that there's anything wrong with alcohol. But from that, the next ayat Allah reveals about alcohol is the ayat from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 219. In which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. He says, they ask you, O Muhammad, about alcohol, intoxicants. And they ask you about games of chance, gambling. Say, in them is great sin and benefit for people. Do people gamble and get rich?
Yes.
Some people do. And do some people drink wine or make wine and sell it and get rich? Some people do. So is there some benefit? Allah says there is somewhat. Some benefit. He acknowledges that. But there's also somewhat sin. وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. And the sin in the two of them is greater than what? Than the benefit. Y'all see that? So now Allah is now hinting toward what? Hinting toward that what? Alcohol is something bad and it likely will be ultimately what? Prohibited. Then the next stage, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these people, they loved alcohol and they drank all the time. And sometimes they would drink at times where they ultimately have to what? They have to offer prayer. And they would come to prayer intoxicated. You guys see that? And a person who prays while intoxicated, instead of praising Allah, might, God forbid, might curse Allah. Y'all see that? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Surah An-Nisa, verse number 43, He told him, He said, لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. He said, don't come to prayer while you are intoxicated. So now, He didn't prohibit them all the time, but He prohibited them during the what? During the daytime. Y'all see that? So from Fajr until after Isha, they couldn't what? They couldn't drink. Y'all see that? So, first, it's permissible and it's something you guys do and it's okay. Second one, it's sinful. There's benefit in it, but it's sinful. It's like a hint. Third one, don't drink. From what? From Fajr till Isha. Y'all can see that? And then finally Allah comes in Surah Al-Ma'idah and He prohibits alcohol altogether. He says, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ وَالْمَيْسِرُ وَالْأَنصَابُ وَالْأَزْلَامُ وَالرِّجْسُ مِنْ عَمْلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. He mentions alcohol and He mentions some other things. He says they're all what? They're foul from the handiwork of the devil. So what? So give it up. Y'all see that? So what did Allah do? Gradual stages. Similarly, people during that time were not accustomed to abstinence. They weren't accustomed to giving up anything. Particularly giving up food and drink and what? And being with their families intimately. Y'all see that? They weren't used to that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask them to do that for the whole day. Y'all see that? So Allah, He did what? He did it what? In stages. Doesn't mean that they didn't have an idea about fasting. It just wasn't something that was part of what? Part of the deen. Right? It wasn't a pillar of the deen like it is today. So, the Prophet ﷺ, so how did this whole thing come about? There were stages of it. There were different iterations of it. You guys know how for example, you get some type of like program or something. You get an app. And the initial app that comes out is the 1.0 version. Is that not so? And then they see that there's some bugs in the app and they make some improvements to it. They come out with a new version. That's the version what? 2.0. Y'all see that? Same thing. Fasting, what? There was a 1.0, there was a 2.0, like. So the Prophet ﷺ, he comes to Medina. And he arrives in Medina, according to the historians, on the 12th day of Rabi'in al-Awwal. The 12th day of Rabi'in al-Awwal. Rabi'in al-Awwal is the third month of what? As-Sana al-Qamariyah. It's like March for us in what they call the solar month, right? So the lunar month is the third month of the lunar calendar. Y'all see that? Rabi'in al-Awwal. Tayyib. So the first year, there was no what? There was no fasting. Rabi'in al-Awwal, Rabi'in al-Thani. Jumad al-Ula, Jumad al-Thaniya. Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan, Shawwal, Dhul-Qi'dah, Dhul-Hijjah. There was no what? No fasting. Dhul-Hijjah is the last month in what? As-Sana al-Qamariyah, the lunar calendar. Y'all see that? Turn the page and we get to what? Muharram. The 10th of Muharram, which is known as Ashura. In the second year of the Hijrah. Muharram. 10th of Muharram, the Prophet ﷺ, he sends a crier to go and proclaim throughout Medina. من أصبح صائما فليتم صوما ومن لم يكن صائما فليصم فَإِنَّ الْيَوْمَ يَوْمُ عَشُرَةٍ. He sent somebody to say, listen, anybody who woke up fasting, which shows you they knew something, they had some knowledge of what? Of fasting. But it wasn't something obligatory. It was just something what? Recommended, right? And some people practiced it. He said, whoever amongst you woke up this morning and they were fasting, then let him what? Complete his fast until what? Until Maghrib. And whoever amongst you woke up and they ate and drank and they weren't fasting, let them from this moment, let them fast. Because today is the day of what? Ashura. So the first fasting that the Muslims were obligated to fast was what? One day, the day of Ashura. The first fast, fasting 1.0 in Islam, the first obligatory fast was the fasting of one day, Yom Ashura. And then when did that happen? In the second year of what? Al-Hijrah. Y'all with me? I'm going to quiz y'all all this now. Okay, so I'm just saying, stay with me, all right? But so now, we're in the second year of Hijrah, first month, the first obligatory fast was one day, that's fasting 1.0. Like fast forward. Safar, Rabi'in al-Awwal, Rabi'in al-Thani, Jumad al-Ula, Jumad al-Thaniya, Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan, Allah reveals. He reveals. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Now we have fasting 2.0. Allah obligates the Muslims to fast an entire what? An entire month. Y'all see that? But this version of fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave the Muslims the option. Gave them the option. To either fast or feed a poor person. Y'all see that? Again, what? Gradually in stages. First it was just what? One day. Most people, even if they were not accustomed to it whatsoever, can what? Can do that. Now He's asking to fast what? The whole month. Some people might not be ready for that. So what does He say? I give you the option. You can either fast or feed a poor person every day. Y'all see that? They had the option. It was optional. Fast or feed. That's fasting, huh? 2.0. The from by that comes what? The next Ramadan. I like go to 3.0. 3.0, anyone and everyone who was able to fast, they didn't have a qualifying exemption like being sick or being pregnant or breastfeeding. They didn't have a qualifying exemption or being too old. All of them were required to fast. Allah revealed the verse where He said, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Whoever amongst you is as a resident during the month, then he must what? He must fast. He made fasting obligatory what? On everybody, except the people who had a qualifying exemption. And, pay attention to 3.0. The window for iftar was dayiq jiddan. The window for iftar was very what? Very small. Maghrib until what? Until you fell asleep, or until Salat al-Isha, whichever came first. Maghrib until you what? Fell asleep, or until Salat al-Isha, whichever came first. But what does that mean? That means, let's say, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but it's happened to me. You ever come for Salat al-Maghrib after a hard day's work? And right after the taslim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you start making dhikr, subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. And you just pass out right there, right after Salat. That ever happened to you? Tayyib. What that means is that if a person prayed Salat al-Maghrib and fell asleep right after because just being so tired, that would close what? That would close the window. That nap would close the window. And they wouldn't be able to make iftar. They wouldn't be able to eat again until what? Until Maghrib the next day. Y'all see that? Or, if Salat al-Isha came in, same thing. Once they prayed Salat al-Isha, the window closed, and you have to what? Wait until Maghrib the next day. Y'all see that? So what happened? Version 3.0, what happened? There are a few things happened, but one of the things that happened was there was an Ansar. And you guys know the Ansar in general, they were farmers. They were people working in agriculture. Is farming a hard job? Even nowadays with all the John Deere technology and tractors and everything, it's still hard, isn't it? But imagine back then how hard it was. So they were all farmers, right? Most of the Ansar were farmers. They were not traders and people who worked in commerce. They were people who They worked the land and they worked hard. So this Ansari, he came home one day from the fields. And he was tired. And it was almost time for iftar. So he asked his wife, he said, "Hal indakum shay?" He said, "Do you guys have something to eat so I can have iftar?" She said, "No, but I'll fetch you something. Just give me a second, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get you something for the iftar." So while she was out, he was so tired, he did what? He fell asleep. And when she came back, she said, "Oh, khasirt, you lost. You missed out. Now you won't be able to have your iftar." So he what? He didn't have iftar. He went out the next day to his field and he fainted. And Allah revealed, if you guys look on the second page, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, He said, "Eat and drink until the white thread of dawn." It's right there in the middle of the, because it's a long passage, right? Or a long ayah. But in the middle of it, it says, "Eat and drink until the white thread of dawn is distinct from the black thread of night. Then thereafter keep your fast until nightfall." So Allah opened up the window. He expanded the window from what? From sunset until what? Until dusk. Y'all see that? I'm sorry, not dusk, but until the crack of dawn. So that gives you what? The whole night now. Eat and drink until what? Until you see what? The crack of dawn. Y'all see that? So we expand the window. So that's what? That would be version what? 4.0, and that's the one that we fast nowadays. Y'all see that? How many versions? 4 versions. All right. But then by that, Allah says, كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, as it was prescribed for those who preceded you. In the Quran, generally, and even in the Sunnah, when Allah and His Messenger, they say, those before you, it refers to who? 2 groups. Refers to who? Those before you. Refers to 2 groups. The Christians and Jews. The Jews and Christians. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed fasting on not just the Muslims, but on the Christians and Jews. And this is important. Why? Because it teaches us, one, that this is a staple of what? Of the divinely revealed religions. You Muslims have not been singled out. You Muslims haven't been asked to do something that other people have not been able or not been asked to do. This is a staple of religion, just like salat, just like zakat. This is something that Allah has embedded in all of what? The iterations of His divinely revealed religion, right? Okay? But what's the benefit of it? The benefit of that is that when somebody else is asked to do the same thing as you, it makes it easier on you to accept it. You guys see that? If I come in here right now and I say, you, and you, help me put chairs and tables up in this room, and everybody else can leave, right? You'll feel singled out. You won't be motivated to do that, because how come they didn't have to do it too? But if I said, "Hey, everybody come, everybody do a table, everybody do some chairs." You know, see that? If we're all doing it together, we feel comfortable doing it. You say that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is almost like He's saying, He's consoling us by telling us, hey, other people had to do this too, right? It's not just you. He tells us, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. That means that Allah didn't do this arbitrarily. He didn't do it random. But rather, everything He does for a good reason and with a wisdom. لَعَلَّكُمْ. Because, right? I didn't just do this random. I did it for a benefit. There's a benefit in it for you. Okay? And the benefit, is it physical or spiritual? Spiritual. Y'all see that? The priority is spiritual. I kind of gave that away in the khutbah, didn't I? All right? طيب. Also, one last thing I'll just mention about the eye, and then we're going to go back and test you guys, is that fasting is the best way to achieve a taqwa. Because if not, Allah would have prescribed what? Something else for this purpose. Y'all see that? That one of the best ways you can get close to Allah and become a very, very committed Muslim, a very pious Muslim, is what? To fast. And this is why when Abu Umama, he came to the Prophet and he said, Ya Rasulullah, he said, Ayyul amali afdal. He said, what deed is the best deed? The Prophet said, Alayka bis-sawm, fa innahu la idla lahu. He said, I advise you, I encourage you to fast, because there's nothing like it. There's nothing that compares to it. Nothing equates to it. Y'all see that? So that's basically the commentary on the first ayah. A lot of ahkam, a lot of rules and regulations we got out of that. And now it's time to test. All right? So let me ask you guys a question. First of all, Allah says, "O you who believe." What's the benefit of starting the verse with "O you who believe"?
It's either a command or it's telling you to stay away from something.
Okay, so what's the benefit though of starting with that? You're right, but what's the benefit with starting with that? What is Allah in a roundabout way telling us? He could just say, "Oh believe," he could just say fast. Why does he say, "Oh you who believe, fast"? He could just say fast. I require you to fast. Why does he say, "Oh you who believe," and then say fast? What's the significance of mentioning belief and then ordering us to fast? Mentioning belief and telling us, don't drink alcohol. Don't let your kids distract you from dhikrullah. What's the significance? Come on, Robbie, you doing good? Take us home.
Because if you don't believe, you're not required to do it.
Close, but no cigar.
To get your attention.
Okay, get our attention, but he could get our attention in other ways. He could say, "O people, O mankind," because he says that in the Quran, doesn't he? Right? So, شرط ايش؟
يعني ليس يعني للتخصيص يعني الإيمان شرط الإسلام.
Mumtaz. Okay, so basically, he says, "O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as in order to say, if you really believe, you'll what? You'll do this. You'll do this." You see this? And you can see it throughout the Quran. So for example, he says, "Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, ittaqullaha wa dharu ma baqiya min ar-riba." He says, "O you who believe, fear Allah and abandon whatever remains owed to you of interest." Y'all see that? Basically, he's saying, if you really believe, you won't devour interest. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? You're going to see this throughout the Quran. "Oh, you who believe, don't do this. Oh, you who believe, do this." Allah is saying, true believers, what? They act accordingly. Y'all see that? That's why he says that. Mumtaz. Very good, Rabi, and very good assist from Abdul Malik. All right, now, fasting, we said it has two meanings: a linguistic meaning and a legal or religious meaning. Y'all see that? Somebody give me the linguistic meaning. The linguistic meaning. Only linguistic, huh? Abstinence. Mutlaq al-imsak. Any abstinence you do, if you refuse to talk, I'm not going to talk today, then you're what? You're fasting in the language. Y'all see that? Very good, Shamsuddin. Very good. Tayyib. What is the religious meaning? Religious meaning. Huh? That you do it? Okay, but there's a definition, because if we just take the linguistic meaning, when Ramadan comes, I can just not talk to none of y'all for 30 days and I'll be fasting. Will that be fasting in Islam? Not in Islam? If fasting in language is not the same as fasting in what? In Islam, in the religion. So in the religion, we said there were four parts to it. You guys remember that? 4 parts to it. Okay, so an imsak I was going to be there because that's just fundamental. You have to abstain. Okay, but there's more to it. Let's start with the first thing. What's the most important thing of anything we do to get to a clock? Okay, so a niyyah has to be there. Mumtaz. An imsak has to be there. There's 2 other things that have to be, huh? Ahsan, ta'abudillah. We have to worship Allah. Bil imsak. By what? Abstaining. Min jamil mufattirat. From all the things that will break your fast. Bin niyyah. Right? With intention. And then what's the last thing? The window. The window of time. Min tulu al-fajr illa ghurub ash-shams. I can't fast from Maghrib to Fajr. Right? You know, I just go to sleep. Right? I take a Tylenol PM. I just sleep. And I say, well, I was fasting. I was fasting. No. I have to fast from what? From the crack of dawn until what? Until sunset. Y'all see that? Like, all right, perfect. Now, Allah says kutiba, prescribed. What does that tell me? What does that tell me about fasting in Ramadan? It's recommended. Are you trying to? It's what? It's mandatory. It's a religious requirement. It's not something optional. Now, second question. This is the yes or no question. Easy one. Is it required on everyone without exception? No. There's some exceptions. That's right? How many exceptions? How many exceptions? Remember, we gave a list. We said Okay, let's before we do that, let's do this. It's required on people who check 5 boxes. 5 boxes. Somebody give me one of the boxes.
Become a Muslim.
You have to be Muslim. You have to be mentally what? Mentally stable or mentally capable. Mentally capable. Good.
Baligh.
Huh?
Baligh.
Badly, you have to be what? Pubescent. Man, you're killing Shamsuddin. You're doing it, huh? What else? So you have to be mentally stable, mentally capable. And have your wits about you. You have to be pubescent. You have to be Muslim. 2 more.
Able.
Can't be said.
Ahsan, able-bodied. You have to be qadir. Okay, and then one left. Huh?
And you don't have one of the
Inhibitors. And you have to be free of what? Inhibitors. You guys remember? Free of inhibitors. Ahsantu. All right. These are the people who are. Huh? العبد يجب عليه. أكيد. You mean like back in the day when they had the Mamalik? Yeah, they had the fast too. Yeah, had the fast too. Yeah, everybody has to fast. The abd is not, he's not excused. طيب, okay. I'll give you, let me see. So I think we hit on all this. Okay, we hit on all those. Okay, good. All right, talk to me about fasting. Was it prescribed in one go?
No.
It was prescribed what? In stages. How many stages? 4. Mashallah. All right, I'm going to pick on you, Mahdud, because you're just sitting over there quiet and letting everybody else steal it. Okay, give me fasting 1.0. Fasting 1.0. 1 day, what day was it? Ashura. Ahsan. طيب, Muhammad, fasting 2.0. Ramadan. And there's a very important detail. No, that's not 4. That's not 2.0. 2.0 Ramadan, but was it recommended or you had a choice, right? What were the choices?
Either you fast
Or you feed. Fast or feed. That was 2.0. We all agree on that?
Yeah.
Right? Like Mumtaz. All right, Ethan. Give me 3.0.
It's a small window.
Ahsan. So was it still optional? No. You had to what? If you didn't have a qualifying exemption, you had to what? Fast. That's the first difference. You had to fast, whereas before you had the option. Number 2, there was a small window. And the window was from, if you remember, Ethan? Maghrib to Isha, or you fell asleep, whichever came first. Y'all said whichever came first. All right, 4.0, this is easy. What we do right now, right? So that means that the window is from Maghrib until? Not until Isha. Don't say that. Don't say that. No. Until the crack of dawn, brother. Crack of dawn, brother. Yeah, bro. All right, who is intended by الذين من قبلكم? Qasim. Who's intended by those before you, those who preceded you? Allah says fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those who came before you, those who preceded you. Who's that talking about?
The previous prophets and messengers.
Okay, so what 2 groups would that combine? What 2 groups would that combine? People talk about the Abrahamic faiths, Muslims, Muslims, blank and blank. What's the blank and blank? That's the people who came before us, or the preceded. And it's almost invariably, if Allah says in the Quran, الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِكُمْ, those who came before you. Prophet says, those who came before you. This is who they're talking about. 2 groups.
Jews and Christians.
Jews and Christians. Ahsan. Jews and Christians. Anytime you have لَعَلَّكُمْ, I'm sorry, الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِكُمْ. طيب, okay. What do we benefit from Allah saying? I'm sorry, I forgot your name, Asha. What's your name? Saleh. Sadiq. Okay. Sadiq. What do we benefit from Allah saying, I prescribe fasting in order for you to? In order for you to. Without completing the sentence, just that part. I prescribe fasting so that you would, in order for you to. What do we benefit from that? Okay, that's a good answer. If you don't know, you just say, I don't know. That's a very good answer. Who can help? Who will do an assist?
Like being the sphere of God.
Okay, we haven't got there yet. Just the part where Allah says, in order for you to, or so that you would. What does that teach us right there?
To give us the understanding as to why we do it.
There's a why. There's a wisdom. I said that Allah didn't do it what? Random. He did it for what? For a wisdom. Right? And everything He does for a wisdom. Mumtaz. But from Badalik, He said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you would attain piety. What do we benefit from that? We'll close with that one. Right at 8:32,
Cautiousness.
Okay, that's good. But what is that teaching us about the real focus of fasting? What does that teach about the real focus of fasting? Allah says, I prescribe fasting because people fast for a lot of reasons, don't they? People can fast to lose weight, right? But is that why Allah prescribed fasting? Because if I'm losing weight, is that physical or spiritual? That's a physical benefit. Does Allah want us to benefit from fasting more physically or more spiritually? That's why He said what? That I want you to benefit more spiritually than what? Physically. I didn't do this so you would lose weight. Right? Got a bunch of Muslims walking around with what? Big bellies like they're pregnant. Right? So I want y'all to what? I want those bellies to go down. No. Allah prescribed it, so what? So we would improve spiritually. Y'all see that? He wants us to prove and have better character, be better Muslims, be better husbands, be better fathers, be better neighbors. He wants us to be better humans. Y'all see that? And so that's why He prescribed fasting. And this is what fasting can do for us if what? If we approach it the right way. A lot of people, some people say that some people, their character is worse in Ramadan than it is outside of Ramadan. Because why? They're not focused on the right thing. They're not focused on the right thing. It's not about what? Starving yourself. Some people who, they're addicted to cigarettes, they're addicted to coffee. Man, Ramadan comes in, they are miserable. They are miserable, and they're miserable to be around, right? Because they can't smoke and they can't drink coffee. Right? And so basically they're this balloon, and you're what? You're the needle. Right? And as soon as you just say something simple to them like, hey brother, how you doing? They explode, right? They explode. And they're like that because why? They're focused on what they have to give up. They're focused on what they have to give up. And they're not focused on what they stand to gain. Y'all see that? We have to go into Ramadan with the wind in our backs. With the wind in our backs, like what? I'm going into this and I'm going to be better. I'm coming out the other side, I'm going to be better. But what? And you have to have your game face on, you have to be locked in. And you have to what? As the Prophet was telling us in the one hadith, he said, if one of you is fasting, then don't let him speak indecently. Don't let him be ignorant or insolent. Don't let him even raise his voice. And if somebody comes and does what? And tries to provoke him, right? He should say, well, he should practice so much self-control. He says, I'm fasting. Right? I don't have time for that. You see that? He's saying what? Really be locked in. Really be locked in on the right thing, and you'll come out the other side. You'll come out the other side from the people who are pious, the people who have religious commitment, the people who are close to Allah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who are close to Allah, who are close to Allah, who are close to Him, who gain closeness from fasting in Ramadan, and make us from those who listen to the talk and follow the best of it. Hada wa sallallahu wa sallam wa Muhammad. Thank you all for coming, especially in all this rain. You got a question, Muhammad? Atfadal.
So can you have the intention of doing both fasting spiritually and also physically?
There's no harm if you also seek as a byproduct, as a secondary, something ancillary, something secondary. You seek, hey, I can take a couple pounds off this, this belly right here, and I'll be able to fit in those pants again. There's no harm if you have what? That as a secondary intention, but your primary intention has to be what? To get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So, alhamdulillah, I haven't been working out the way I should these last few months. I put on a few pounds, right? I put on a few pounds, and I'm kind of looking forward to Ramadan. I eat less, I still work out, and I end up what? Dropping a few pounds. There's no harm in that, as long as what? That's far down the list of what? Of your priorities. My number one priority is what? Is to worship Allah and to draw closer to Him and to be better. As long as that's you're locked in on that, that's your number one priority. It doesn't matter if what? You also seek what? The byproduct that probably will come from fasting if you do it right. What? You'll lose some pounds. Now some people gain weight. They gain weight because why? They eat with their eyes, not with their stomach. They're not really that hungry, but they just I've been starving all day. So they just what? Just stuff themselves and end up gaining weight in Ramadan. So you gotta be careful. But yeah, if you have that in your mind, but it's what? It's very, very far down the list of priorities. And yeah, there's no harm in that.
So, Ashura, which is 10th Muharram, right? Fasting 1.0, what kind of fasting was that? Abstaining from food or something else?
No, it was just like the fasting that we do, meaning food, drink, and intimacy, but it was just one day.
Is it in the Quran or in...
No, Ashura came in the Hadith.
Please explain it a little more. Explain.
So Ashura, the Prophet ﷺ, when he first came to Medina, he found that the Jews, they were fasting Ashura, the 10th of Muharram. So he asked them about that. He said, what is this day that you guys fast? They said, Hada Yawm al-Azim. They said, this is a great day. This is the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liberated Moses from their enemy, Pharaoh, and drowned him in the sea. And so Moses, after that incident, he fasted that day, and the Jews, his ummah, his community, they fasted it too. And so we fasted, ta'zeeman lillah, right, wa shukran lahu. We fast this day, glorifying Allah for this great exodus and liberation from the bondage in Egypt, and also thanking God for that. So the Prophet says, he turned to the Muslims and said, Nahnu awla bi Musa minhum. He said, we have more right to Moses than what? Than they do. Right? And we should honor this day, the way they honor this day. So he ordered the Muslims to fast. So they fasted Ashura. That was the second year of Hijrah. And a few months later, Ramadan came and Allah revealed the ayat prescribing fasting. And that was 2.0. And that was the option to what? To feed or fast. Make sense?
Okay, I might have missed this, so forgive me if I did. But was 3.0 the entire month of Ramadan? He says, okay, I was thinking that when the farmer fainted, maybe the ayah came right afterwards in the middle. But then I was like, okay.
So 3.0 was, like I said, it was, they fasted that month of Ramadan, and this thing happened, and then Allah revealed the verse that allowed them to work.
So 4.0, abstaining from drinking, happened after making the fasting during the month of Ramadan. It happened after that?
So 4.0, what we understand, and that's a good question actually you said, it could have been in the same